I'm 81 years old today. 81. It's a strange number. You spend the first 20 years trying to be someone, the next 40 trying to afford being that person, and the last 20 wondering where the hell everyone went. My house is quiet now. It's that kind of quiet that has a weight to it. It presses against your eardrums. I sit here in the dark mostly, watching the shadows of the oak trees outside dance across the linoleum floor. I've got a glass of water sitting on the side table next to me. It's bottled, Evian. I haven't drank from the tap in this town since 1994. People think getting old is about losing your hair or your memory. It's not. For me, my memory is sharper than a butcher's knife. I remember everything. I remember the smell of the chemical plant at 4 a.m., that heavy, metallic scent that stuck to the back of your throat like wet pennies. I remember the way the fluorescent lights in my office used to hum, a constant, low-frequency buzz that made your teeth ache by the end of a 12-hour shift. I was the supervisor, George Miller, the man who kept the gears turning. I had 200 men under me, and I knew every one of their kids' names. I thought I was a good man. I really did. I went to church on Sundays, I tipped 20% at the diner, and I coached Little League. But there's a difference between being a good man and being a man who just hasn't been tested yet. It started on a Tuesday. I remember it was unseasonably hot for October. The air was thick, like you had to push your way through it. I was in the control room when the sensors on Basin 4 started screaming. It wasn't a standard leak. This wasn't just a gasket blowing or a pipe sweating. This was deep. I walked out to the edge of the secondary containment area. The sun was setting, turning the sky a bruised purple color. I looked down into the drainage trench that led toward the creek, the one that fed the town's reservoir. The water wasn't water anymore. It looked like liquid obsidian. It was thick, oily, and blacker than a moonless night. And the smell, it wasn't chemicals. It smelled like something that had been dead for 1,000 years and finally got dug up. It was a sweet, rotten stench that made my stomach do a slow, oily flip. I knew right then. I knew exactly what had happened. The lining in the deep injection well had failed. We were dumping high-concentrate neurotoxins and heavy metals directly into the aquifer. We weren't just polluting. We were poisoning the marrow of the earth. I should have hit the kill switch. I should have called the EPA. I should have shouted from the rooftops. Instead, I went back to my office and sat in the dark. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. It was the front desk. "Mr. Miller, there's a car here for you. Black sedan. They say they're from corporate in Houston." They didn't even wait for me to say come up. 3 men in suits that cost more than my house walked in. They didn't look like villains. They looked like accountants. They looked like the kind of men who played golf and worried about their cholesterol. The lead man, a guy named Henderson, didn't sit down. He just laid a manila envelope on my desk. "George," his voice was smooth like expensive bourbon, "we've had a bit of a technical hiccup. We're going to handle it, but we need total continuity of operations. No panic, no interruptions." "The water is black, Henderson." My voice sounded small in that big office. "It's in the creek. It's going to hit the reservoir by morning."
He leaned over my desk. I could smell his peppermint gum. "It's a temporary discoloration, George, a harmless carbon byproduct. We'll run a filtration cycle. It'll clear up in a week. But if the public sees it before then, the plant closes. 200 jobs gone. Your pension gone. Your kids' college funds? Poof. He opened the envelope. Inside was a check. It wasn't $10,000. It wasn't $50,000. It was $1.2 million. I stared at it. The paper felt heavy. I could see the watermark. My name was typed out perfectly. George Miller, $1,200,000 and 0 cents. That's for your consultation over the next 20 years, Henderson whispered. And this, he pulled out a stack of papers, the non-disclosure agreement. This is just a formality to protect the proprietary carbon process we're using. My heart was hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would crack a bone. I thought about my wife, Martha. I thought about the mortgage. I thought about the fact that I'd worked 40 years and had maybe $60,000 in the bank. It's just a week, I told myself. They said it's harmless. They wouldn't lie about something that big. They have families too. The lie felt like a warm blanket. I wanted to believe it so badly that I didn't even notice it was a shroud. I picked up the pen. It was a heavy, gold-plated thing they let me keep. The ink flowed so smooth. I signed my name on the bottom line. I sold my soul for 7 figures and a peppermint-scented lie. The next morning, the first calls started coming into the plant. People in the North End were saying their tap water looked like weak coffee. By noon, it looked like Guinness. By the evening, it was sludge. I told my shift leads the script Henderson gave me. It's a carbon flush. Harmless. Just boil it if you're worried. It'll pass. I said it over and over. I said it to the mayor. I said it to my neighbor, Bill, who lived 3 houses down and had a 3-year-old daughter who loved to play in the sprinkler. It's fine, Bill, I said, leaning over the fence, feeling that heavy check folded in my back pocket. Just a glitch in the filters. Don't worry about it. A week passed. The water didn't clear. It stayed dark. Then the birds started dying. Just small ones at first. Sparrows, robins. You'd see them belly up in the bird baths, their little feathers stained with that oily soot. Then the dogs started getting sick. And then the people. It wasn't fast. That's the mercy I wasn't granted. It wasn't fast. It was slow. A rash that wouldn't go away. A cough that sounded like dry leaves rattling in a plastic bag. Fatigue that turned grown men into ghosts. Corporate sent a cleanup crew. They worked at night. They pumped some kind of neutralizing agent into the reservoir that made the water look clear again after a month, but it didn't take the poison out. It just made it invisible. I stayed. I kept the secret. I watched Henderson and his suits disappear back to Houston. I watched the check clear in my bank account. I watched the zeros grow, and I felt like a king. For about 6 months, I actually convinced myself I'd saved the town. The plant is still open, I'd tell myself at night, staring at the ceiling. Everyone still has their jobs. I did a hard thing for the greater good. But then Bill, my neighbor Bill, came over to my porch. It was a Saturday. He looked like he hadn't slept in a year. His skin was the color of old parchment. "George," he said. His voice was shaking. "It's Sarah. The doctors, they don't know what it is. Her blood, they say it's full of things that shouldn't be there. Lead, cadmium, things I can't even pronounce." He looked at me with these watery, desperate eyes. "You work at the plant, George. You know the chemistry. Is there anything you aren't telling us about that week the water went dark?" My throat felt like it was filled with sand. I could feel the ghost of that gold pen in my hand. I thought about the NDA. I thought about the $1 million. I thought about the prison sentence Henderson hinted at if I ever misinterpreted the facts. I looked my friend in the eye, a man I'd grilled burgers with every 4th of July for a decade, and I lied again. It was just carbon, Bill. I swear on my life, it was just a filter malfunction. It had nothing to do with Sarah. Bill nodded slowly. He looked so broken, I thought he might just dissolve right there on my porch. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, George, I trust you." He walked back to his house. 2 months later, they buried Sarah. She was 4 years old. That was 40 years ago. Since then, the plant has closed. Corporate filed for bankruptcy, restructured, and vanished under a different name. Most of the people I worked with are in the ground. Cancer, rare blood disorders, bad luck, the local paper called it, a statistical anomaly. But I'm still here. I'm 81. My wife is gone. She died of the same bad luck 10 years ago. My kids moved across the country and barely call. I think they can smell the rot on me, even over the phone. I'm the last one left. Every other supervisor, every executive who was in that room, every doctor who took a grant to keep their mouth shut, they're all gone. I'm the only one left who knows why the water turned black. I'm the only one left who knows it wasn't an accident. It was a choice. And tonight, I did something I haven't done in 40 years.
I went down to the basement. I dug through an old trunk, past the photos of Martha, past my retirement plaque. At the very bottom, tucked inside a hollowed-out book, I found it. The original NDA and the ledger I kept in secret. The real chemical readouts from that night in October. The ones that prove we didn't just leak byproducts. We dumped the equivalent of a slow-motion nuclear bomb into the town's throat. My hands are shaking so bad I can barely hold the paper. The silence in this house is getting louder. It's screaming at me. I realized something today, sitting here with my bottled water. I thought I was buying a future for my family. I thought I was buying security. But you can't buy security with blood money. You're just renting it. And the interest rate is your soul. I looked out the window a few minutes ago. There's a car parked down the street. A black sedan. It looks just like the one Henderson arrived in. Maybe it's just my mind playing tricks. Maybe it's just a neighbor. Or maybe they know. Maybe they know I'm the last witness, and they've come to make sure the secret stays in the ground with everyone else. I have the ledger on my lap. I have a stamp and an envelope addressed to the state's biggest newspaper. My heart is thumping again, that old familiar terror. If I walk to the mailbox, I'm dead. I know how these people work. I'm an 81-year-old man with a history of palpitations. It would be so easy to make it look like natural causes. But if I stay in this chair, and let the clock keep ticking, I'm already dead. I've been dead since the moment I signed that paper. I'm standing up now. My knees are popping. The floorboards are groaning under my weight. I'm looking at the door. I'm looking at the black sedan.
I told her it was just work stress. I told her I was just tired. Liar. I freeze. My heart does a strange, fluttering skip. Thump, thump, thump. A cardiac event, the doctors call it. I call it the ghost of my conscience trying to kick its way out. I look toward the sedan. The door is open, but nobody gets out. They're just watching.
They want me to know they're there. They want me to feel the leash. I keep walking. I'm halfway to the blue mailbox at the corner now. You want to know the worst part? It wasn't just the one check. It was the way they made me a partner in the crime. A month after the leak, Henderson called me back to the plant. It was 2 a.m. Henderson called me back to the pump room. "George," he said, leading me down to the pump room, "we have a bit of excess inventory we need to move. The tanks are overpressurized. If we don't vent them, the whole secondary containment system blows." I looked at the gauges. They were fine. They were perfectly in the green. He was lying. "Where are we venting it, Henderson?" I asked. I already knew the answer. He said, "Into the storm drains." He didn't even blink. He was checking his fingernails. "It's a one-time thing. The rain will dilute it. It'll be out to the river before anyone notices. And besides, you've already signed the papers, George. You're the supervisor of record. If this goes south, it's your signature on the maintenance logs." That was the moment the trap snapped shut. I wasn't just a man who took a bribe anymore. I was an accomplice. I was the guy who pulled the trigger. I walked over to the manual override. The handle was cold. It was greasy with industrial lubricant. I remember the sound it made when I threw the lever, a long metallic shriek of protest, and then the roar of the high-pressure pumps.
I have to decide if $1 million was worth the life of a 4-year-old girl named Sarah. I'm reaching for the doorknob. The air outside tastes like rain, not the clean, fresh rain you get in the movies, but that heavy, ozone-scented dampness that smells like wet asphalt and old metal. I'm standing on my porch, clutching that envelope against my chest like it's the only thing keeping my heart from falling out of my ribs. The black sedan is still there. It's sitting under a dead street lamp about 5 houses down. No lights on, no exhaust coming from the tailpipe. It's just a silhouette, a shadow waiting for another shadow. My hand is shaking so hard the paper in the envelope is rattling. It sounds like dry leaves. It sounds like Sarah's lungs did at the end. I start walking. Every step feels like I'm lifting a cinder block. My hip joints are grinding, bone on bone, and the cold is seeping through my thin cardigan. I should have grabbed a coat. I should have stayed inside. I should have burned the ledger and died with the secret like a good company man. But I can't. I can't do it anymore. I remember the day the money hit my account. It didn't feel like $1 million. It felt like a weight. I took Martha to a fancy steakhouse in the city. We sat in a booth with white tablecloths and drank wine that cost more than my first car. I remember looking at her across the table. She was wearing a new pearl necklace I'd bought her. She looked beautiful. She looked happy. She asked me, "George, are you okay? You've been staring at that steak for 10 minutes." I looked down. The steak was rare. The red juices were pooling on the white ceramic plate. All I could see was the black water in the trench. All I could smell was that sweet, rotting stench of the deep injection well. I felt a surge of bile rise up in my throat. I had to run to the bathroom and heave until my eyes watered.
I stood there for 3 hours, watching the poison disappear into the drains. I watched my reflection in the dark puddles on the floor. I didn't recognize the man looking back. He looked old. He looked hollow. He looked like a man who had traded his reflection for a bank balance. The pain hits me then. It's not a sharp pain. It's a massive, crushing pressure, like an invisible elephant is sitting on my chest. It starts in the center of my sternum and radiates out to my left shoulder. It feels hot, like someone is pouring molten lead down my arm. I stumble. My knees hit the wet pavement. Crack! The envelope flies out of my hand and slides across the asphalt. I reach for it, but my fingers won't move. They're tingling, then they're numb. Not now, I think. Please, not now. Not before I get it in the box. I'm lying on my side on the cold ground. The smell of the wet asphalt is overwhelming. It's that same smell from the plant. It's following me. It's always been following me. I look up. The black sedan is moving. It's rolling slowly down the street towards me. No headlights, just the orange glow of its parking lights, like the eyes of a predator. I try to scream, but no sound comes out. Just a wet, wheezing gasp. My vision is starting to tunnel. The world is turning into a small, bright circle of light, and everything else is fading into black sludge. I think of Martha. I think of the day she got her diagnosis. Small cell carcinoma. The doctors said it was unusual for someone who didn't smoke. They said it was probably environmental. I spent $500,000 of that blood money trying to save her. I flew in specialists from Mayo. I bought her the most expensive treatments. I sat by her bed in that sterile white hospital room for 6 months, watching her wither away.
Every time I paid a bill with that money, I felt like I was feeding her the very thing that was killing her. One night, near the end, she grabbed my hand. Her skin felt like wet tissue paper. She looked at me, her eyes clouded with morphine, and she whispered, "George, did we do something wrong? Why is everyone in town so sick?" I wanted to tell her. I wanted to scream it. I did this. I took the money. I signed the paper. I turned the handle. But I didn't. I just kissed her forehead and told her it was just bad luck. I lied to her on her deathbed. I let her die believing her husband was a good man. That's the real cardiac event, not this heart attack. The fact that my heart kept beating while hers stopped, even though I was the one who deserved the grave. The car stops 10 feet away from me. The engine is idling, a low rhythmic growl. Vroom, vroom, vroom. The passenger window rolls down. I can't see the face. It's too dark. But I see the glint of a watch, a gold watch, just like the one the company gave me for 25 years of service. "George," a voice says. It's not Henderson. Henderson is dead. It's someone younger, someone who sounds just like him. "You're making a mistake, George. Think about your kids. Think about your grandkids. You want them to have to pay back everything we gave you? You want their lives ruined because you're feeling sentimental in your old age?" I'm gasping for air. The pressure on my chest is unbearable. It feels like my ribs are gonna snap. The water, I choke out. "The water is fine, George," the voice says. "It's cold. It's clinical. The water is whatever we say it is. Now give me the envelope. Let's go back inside. We'll call you an ambulance. We'll tell them you had a fall. You'll be fine." The car door opens. A pair of polished black shoes steps out onto the wet street. I look at the envelope. It's 3 feet away. It's sitting in a puddle. The ink is starting to bleed. I think of Sarah. I think of the way she used to run through the sprinklers. I think of the way her father, Bill, looked at me when he said, "I trust you, George." I realized then, lying there on the ground with my heart failing and a corporate ghost looming over me, that the $1 million wasn't a reward.
It was a burial fee. They weren't paying me for my silence. They were paying for the right to bury me while I was still breathing. I've been dead for 40 years. Get away, I wheeze. I reach out. My fingernails scrape against the asphalt. I grab the edge of the envelope. It's wet. It's heavy. The man in the polished shoes stands over me. I can see his silhouette against the gray sky. He doesn't look like a monster. He looks like a businessman. That's the most terrifying part. "Don't be a hero, George," he says. He reaches down. He's going to take it. I use every last ounce of strength I have. I don't go for his hand. I don't try to fight him. I roll. I roll toward the mailbox. It's right there, a big blue pillar of hope in the middle of a nightmare. The man lunges for me, but his shoe slips on the wet leaves. He curses. I reach up. My hand is shaking. My vision is almost gone. I can only see the slot, the dark, open mouth of the mailbox. I shove the envelope in. I hear it hit the bottom. Thump. It's gone. It's out of my hands. It's in the system. The man stands up, straightening his suit. He looks down at me. He doesn't look angry. He looks disappointed. "You just killed yourself for nothing, George. We'll have that box intercepted before the sun comes up. You think you're the only one on the payroll?"
The door slams. The engine revs. The black sedan pulls away, leaving me alone on the corner of 4th and Main. I'm lying on my back now. The rain is falling directly into my eyes. It's cold. It's so cold. But for the first time in 40 years, the weight on my chest, it feels different. It's still there. I'm still dying. But the elephant is gone. The silence comes back. But this time, it isn't heavy. It's light. I close my eyes. I see the water. It's not black anymore. I didn't die. Isn't that a hell of a thing? I spent 40 years waiting for my heart to stop so I wouldn't have to face what I'd done. And when I finally do the right thing, the universe decides I have to stay awake for the aftermath. I woke up 3 days later in a room that smelled like industrial bleach and old lilies. The light coming through the blinds was too bright. It felt like it was trying to scrub my brain clean. My chest felt like it had been cracked open with a sledgehammer. The doctors told me they had to use the paddles twice. They said it was a miracle. I told them it was a punishment. I looked to my left, and there, on the small plastic table next to my bed, was a newspaper. The headline wasn't about me, not yet, but there was a small column on the front page. Anonymous tip prompts federal investigation into decades-old water contamination. I closed my eyes and I cried. I'm 81 years old, hooked up to a dozen tubes, and I cried like a baby. Not because I was happy, but because I realized that the truth is a heavy thing to carry. But it's even heavier when you finally put it down. You realize just how much it's been crushing your bones all those years.
Listen to me. I'm sitting here in a rehab facility now. The suits don't come around anymore.
The black sedan vanished the moment the feds showed up at the old plant gates with a warrant. Turns out those men aren't so brave when the light gets turned on. They're cockroaches. They only thrive in the dark, and they only have power if you're afraid of the dark too. I look at my bank account on my phone sometimes. $1,200,000 plus interest. It's a lot of zeros. You know what that money can buy me now? A slightly softer mattress to die on, a nurse who smiles a little wider when she changes my IV. That's it. It can't buy back Sarah's 4-year-old laughter. It can't buy the breath back into Martha's lungs. It can't even buy me a glass of water from my own kitchen sink that tastes like guilt. I spent the best years of my life protecting a check. I thought I was being a provider. I thought I was being realistic. We love that word when we're doing something we know is wrong, don't we? I'm just being realistic. I have to look out for my own. But your own has to live in the world you're helping to poison. I see you out there. I see you young people, and even you middle-aged folks grinding away. I see the way you look at a shortcut or a small compromise, and you think, it's just this once. I'll make it up later. I'll get the money first, and then I'll be a good person. You're lying to yourself. Goodness isn't a destination you reach after you've made your pile. It's the road you're walking on. And if you step off that road for $1 million, or a promotion, or a fancy title, don't think for a second that the road is going to wait for you to come back. The mud sticks to you. It gets in your pores. It changes the way you walk.
I'm the only one left alive who remembers the night the water turned black. All the others, Henderson, the board of directors, the lawyers, they took their secrets to the grave. They thought they got away with it because they died with full pockets, but they didn't win. They lost the only thing that matters. They lost the right to be remembered with honor. When I die, and it'll be soon, I can feel the engine idling low. Nobody's going to talk about my Supervisor of the Year awards. They aren't going to talk about the man who finally told the truth. And even that feels like too much credit. I'm not a hero. I'm a coward who ran out of time. I want you to look at your life right now. I want you to look at the NDAs in your own life. Maybe it's not a chemical spill. Maybe it's the way your company treats people. Maybe it's a lie you're telling your spouse. Maybe it's the person you're pretending to be so you can keep a seat at a table you're not even liked. Is it worth it? Look at me, 81, alone in a room that smells like floor wax. I'd trade every single cent of that $1 million to go back to that Tuesday in October. I'd trade it all to hit that kill switch. I'd trade it all to stand on my porch and tell Bill the truth while his daughter was still healthy enough to jump in the sprinklers. But I can't. I have to live with the ghost of a 4-year-old girl standing in the corner of my room every night. That's the cost the thumbnail talked about. It isn't financial. It's the fact that when you sell your soul, you don't lose it all at once. You lose it in drips, a little bit every time you stay silent, a little bit every time you cash the check, until one day you look in the mirror and there's just a hollow shell with a bank balance.
Wake up. Don't wait until you're 81 to find your spine. Your spine is what holds you up now. If you're in a room where you have to be quiet to stay, leave the room. If you're holding a check that makes your hands feel dirty, tear it up. If you know something that's hurting people, speak it. They'll tell you it's complicated. They'll tell you about the economy and proprietary information and legal ramifications. Those are just big words used by small men to keep you in line. There is nothing complicated about a child getting sick because you wanted a bigger house. I'm going to close my eyes now. I'm tired. The feds are coming back tomorrow for another deposition. I'm going to tell them everything. I'm going to give them the names, the dates, the coordinates of the other burial sites. I'm going to burn it all down. It won't fix my heart. It won't bring anyone back. But for the first time in 40 years, I'm going to sleep without the taste of pennies in my mouth. My name is George Miller. I was a chemical plant supervisor. I was a millionaire. I was a liar. But today, I'm just an old man who finally told the truth. Don't be like me. Be better. Be earlier. Wake up before the water turns black.